So today we're going to be talking about how to fold tripartite in this pattern that is on screen here. And I wanted to particularly emphasize with this pattern how I designed it. Not just how to fold it, but also how to create designs like this of your own. So, hi, I'm Madonna Yoder. Welcome to Gathering Folds, where we fold origami tessellations in a way that lets you figure out how to fold whatever pattern you want, not just the particular one that we're taking a look at. So let's go ahead and shift over to our paper. We're going to start with the double depth triangle twist in the middle, and this is a closed triangle twist. So the first thing we need to know is where the center of our grid is. And I should mention this is a 32-fold triangle grid on a hexagon. For those of you not familiar with origami tessellations, I had to fold all of these grid lines onto the paper in advance before I'm able to use it to create the pattern. So I'm going to fold in half in one direction and then find the grid line that goes down to the corner in another direction. That will tell me the center point of the paper. And with this closed double depth triangle twist, we're going to have three directions of mountain folds. I'm going to draw those in red. And then this is a double depth twist. So the valley folds that are corresponding to these mountain fold directions are going to be 1, 2 grid spaces away instead of the usual 1 grid space away. So once those are in place, and really starting with a hexagon, we could just say, okay, the mountain folds go to 3 corners. That's another way to find this without marking on the paper. And the valley folds are 2 spaces away, and I'm making this a right-handed fold, so the valley folds are above the mountain on the right-hand side. And once we have this set up, we're going to press just outside of where the valley fold of one direction hits the mountain fold of another direction and squash that area flat. I should say that this is a pretty advanced tessellation. So if you're brand new to origami tessellations, I have a whole playlist on starting tessellations that you can check out. I also have a whole playlist on flagstone patterns that is going to include this video also. And the flagstone patterns are ones where the twists lay exactly next to each other with a little grout line in between. Usually I think of flagstone patterns as being full coverage, so the entire pattern has that condition. Today we're doing a pattern that has some flagstone elements, but is not a full coverage flagstone pattern. So next up, we're going to fold trapezoid twists on these double depth pleats. And this kind of gets into how I designed this pattern, because first I had to design how the shapes were going to connect. And I had some other patterns where I had double depth pleats coming out of a hexagon and 6 trapezoids around that. And I was like, well, what if I do that around a triangle? And so I want this trapezoid to be as close as possible on this double depth pleat. So my valley fold, which is where the corner of the twist is going to be right at the corner of the triangle twist. And then all of the other pleats of the trapezoid, other than this double depth pleat, are going to be single depth pleats. So I'm going to have one single depth pleat here. The next single depth pleat is going to use the same mountain fold as the double depth pleat, and my valley fold will come out here. And that's really going to get put in place when I find the third mountain fold. So I've got my mountain that's a continuation of the double depth plate mountain. And then my third one is coming over here. This is the same set of pointy tips that I see when I set up an open hexagon twist. So this is the open trapezoid twist. We've got those 3 single depth plates, and the double depth plate is coming from the triangle in the middle. Now, for once, we're going to do this exact step on all 3 of these double depth plates. So if you want to see it again in full detail, you can rewind back to the first one. But in summary, I'm going to have my valley fold come to the corner of that triangle twist, setting up a pleat on that valley. My central of the 3 single depth plates, and the way these trapezoid twists work is there's 3 directions of single depth plates and 1 direction of double depth plates. It's like you took the directions for a triangle twist and just added another line in the middle. That's kind of a visualization that comes from Ben Parker's work on archetypes. So we're setting up our open trapezoid twist and squashing and rotating and setting up another identical open trapezoid twist. And for those of you watching this live, I am keeping an eye on the comments. Feel free to ask me to explain things another way, or ask for clarification on things that are confusing. And so from here, what we've got is an arrangement of shapes where we have 2 pleats coming off in one direction, 1 pleat in the next, then 2 pleats, then 1, 2 pleats, then 1. This is a symmetric situation, and it's acting a lot like a mixed depth hexagon, a 3-fold mixed depth hexagon, because it has those 2 areas of shrinkage in one direction, or twice as much shrinkage in one direction as the next. And all of these pleats are lined up, like where there's multiple, they're all lined up in the same orientation. Yeah, Nancy, this is going to be a fun one. Good morning. So the bits of twists that match onto here, so we started with 3-fold rotational symmetry. We're aiming for 2 more positions of 3-fold rotational symmetry. The easiest way to get that is putting a cluster of 4 triangle twists on these 2 pleats and 1 triangle twist on the single plate. And those are all going to be on the back side of the paper. This is a little bit easier to see in the tiling representation, because then all the shapes are just sitting next to each other, and you can see, oh, this pleat goes from this shape to that shape. No problem. But here it's a little more opaque. So here we have something that kind of resembles a hexagon-y thing. And then we're going to be adding things that resemble, that kind of resemble, well, that are triangle things around it, but 2 different flavors. So we'll start by flipping the paper over. And it doesn't really matter how I flip, because this orientation is the same as this orientation, is the same as this orientation. That's not a problem. And what we're going to do is set up some of these next twists. So I have the privilege of looking at the crease pattern on my other screen, and I can see things like, okay, I'm going to end up with a closed triangle twist, creating this spacing where I only have one space between this mountain fold and this valley fold, and that closed triangle twist is on this pleat. So that means that my next mountain is out here. For that closed triangle twist, that means the center of the twist is there. So if I fold that pleat and open up this one, not going to want to open very much because I have this pleat laying on top, but I can lift my layers, get that third pleat direction in place. This also has only a single space between the parallel mountain folds. And I can get that triangle set up. I want to just quickly double check on the other side that I haven't messed anything up. And so you'll see one of two things. So either see this pleat laying on top, or you'll see the trapezoid on top. Either one of those is a good option for now. And then I can flip back, and it looks like I only have two corners to press on. I can also hold down a little bit, kind of off of the corner itself, and start pressing that twist, and it's going to squash under this existing pleat. But that pleat is 2 spaces deep, so there's plenty of room to squash. And then the next thing that I can do here is, and sometimes it's really unclear when you look at the crease pattern and then you flip the paper over and it's like, well, what actually should we be doing here? And that's where I'm going to pull out my handy dandy tiling to double check exactly what I should be doing. And actually I will go ahead and show the tiling. So this is what I'm looking at when I'm trying to interpret a crease pattern. And heck, why not throw up the crease pattern too? So this is the crease pattern. It looks kind of a mess, but it is telling me, okay, the trapezoid is on the same side as this double depth triangle. All of the other triangles are on the other side of the paper. We have this triple open triangle coming up. The triangle that we just put in is this guy here. We have that single spacing between the valley and this mountain, or when we flip the paper over, what I said was this mountain and the next valley. And then what the tiling tells me is, okay, we have this triangle and 3 trapezoids chunk. We just folded one of these triangles. So the layer that I'm trying to add here is a skinny layer on this side, thick layer through here, then skinny layer, thick layer, and it's going to alternate skinny layer and thick layer. I can expect to get 3 of the 4 triangles in the cluster of 4, and all 3 of these trapezoids around the single triangle. So when I'm folding these challenging patterns, I'm always referring back to the tiling. But back to the folding itself. Now, when I take a look at my crease pattern, I see, okay, I want to continue in the cluster of 4 triangles. And so I'm going to have that triple open triangle twist off of this pleat, and the corner is going to be exactly in line with that closed triangle twist that we just put in. Yeah, sometimes the tiling is very unexpected relative to the crease pattern or the final form. And so we have our valley, we have our mountain, and because it's triple open, we're not just outlining one grid triangle, we're not outlining a space with 2 grid triangles on each side, we're outlining a space with 3 grid triangles on each side. And so as I set that up, I can notice that I have this pleat overlap that happens before the actual corner of the twist. So what I'm going to do is open that up and put in a 3-way intersection, which will be where my next closed triangle twist goes. And so first off, from the design perspective, how did I know that this triangle had to be triple open? Well, what I did is I said, okay, I want this closed triangle to be a position of symmetry. I want to have the triangle of trapezoid twists be a position of symmetry. And then I drew on my crease pattern a line between them, rotated it 60 degrees and said, well, that has to be the center. And that is the center with this pleat going into it of a triple open triangle twist. So with this in place, we've got our triple open, so 3 grid spaces to a side, area outlined by our 3 pleats. We've got our next closed triangle twist set up and waiting to be folded. I'm going to spread and squash this triple open triangle. Notice that as I'm doing that, I'm letting these layers float to the top because it's such a tiny angle there. I don't want to add extra thickness and shove the paper around too much. And then with that in place, I can squash my new closed triangle twist and get ready for that single triangle twist that we'll be folding next. So next up, we're headed for that single triangle twist, and it's going to be very dense spacing. This is the flagstone part. I'm going to have a valley fold along the edge of this folded mountain. It's not on the folded mountain, it's on the layer below. Then my mountain fold for the triangle twist will be 1 space away from that. As I lift this up, I notice that if I just folded this directly, the 3rd pleat would go straight through the triangle that I just put in. And so I'm going to do a compound wrap. So I am taking this pleat coming out of the triangle I just put in, splitting it into a 3-way intersection at the corner of the twist. One of those pleats goes out to the edge of the paper. The other one splits into another 3-way intersection, 1 grid spacing away, and that lets it tuck under this pleat that's coming from our new triangle twist. And let us put in that new closed triangle. So this configuration of triangles is a classic configuration in flagstone patterns. Next, we'll flip over, and I may as well go ahead and put in the next trapezoid twist. And let me test this real quick. Yeah. Yeah, that won't create any new pleat overlaps. So I opened up my pleat overlap, or my compound wrap, and when you first open it, it really looks like it wants to be a rhombus twist. But what we're going to do instead is put in another direction of pleat. This is going to lay right along, again, the folded mountain, another classic flagstone spacing. And so our new mountain will be one space away. And this is going to erase the pleat that was headed out straight for the corner. And it's going to add a second pleat depth, or a second grid spacing between the mountain and the valley folds of the double depth pleat, the pleat that's headed out towards the middle of the edge of the paper. With that in place, we can squash another trapezoid twist. From here, we want to put in our third trapezoid of this triangle of trapezoid twists. And we're going to have some wraps to make that happen. We're going to have valley fold passing down through here. So we'll pop open this bottom pleat, pop down where that valley passes through, and that is going to be a triangle wrap. That is going to be an identical triangle to the first one that we put, the first triangle that we put in over here. This is going to be identical situation there. And then we're going to have another triangle wrap going up this way under the corner of the trapezoid that we just put in. So the direction of the pleat from this trapezoid is that way. And so this pleat from the pointy tip of the previous trapezoid can wrap around. And then my double depth direction is the one that's not immediately going to either a triangle or a wrap. So I have my double depth pleat going out, and that third trapezoid can go in place. So it's kind of weird that we came around and we went this trapezoid, and only then back closer to the center to fold that trapezoid. That's one of the weirdnesses that gets ironed out by the tiling representation, where doing this one just finished up a set of parallel pleats, and then this is in the next set of parallel pleats. So now one of the things I want to do is lift this point up over the pleat with the triangle wrap, because this mountain is going to, that mountain is going to change as the pleat flips over to squash the twist, and we don't want this point getting caught up in that change. So then when I flip over, I have two triangle wraps on screen, two triangle wraps to squash. I can go ahead and squash both of them. And they're both kind of sticking under things. This one I can open up that double depth pleat enough to stick my finger under and squash normally. But this guy is not really opening up. Good thing the closed triangle twists generally squash very cleanly. So now we're actually back at the same position we were when we folded this closed triangle. This is an identical copy, and we're going to see the same steps as we move forward. So I'll rotate the paper, and the next thing we do is set up that triple open triangle twist. So we're going to have lots of space. We're going to come 1, 2, 3 spaces before we see that next pleat direction, or that next mountain fold grid line, rather. And we're running into this pleat overlap that we're going to open up and turn into a 3-way intersection on this side of the paper, because this triple open triangle is the center of the cluster of 4 triangles, and so it has to have identical triangles on all 3 corners. Or I should say, it's the center of a cluster of 4 triangles that's acting as a position of 3-fold rotational symmetry, and therefore it has to have the symmetry. And so then I can squash my triple open triangle twist, which, by the way, is the first size of triangle twist after the closed triangle twist to be centered on a grid intersection. So before you hit the triple open, there's 2 positions where like the single open and the double open are both centered on grid triangles. And that's actually a straight line with evenly spaced points between the centers of closed, open, double open, triple open triangle twists. That's actually something that generalizes. So we were talking at the beginning about generalizing the tiling from trapezoids around a double depth hexagon, which is something you'll be seeing in upcoming streams, to trapezoids around a double depth triangle. And this idea of the centers of the twists as you change sizes being aligned in a single line when you hold 2 pleats fixed, that's something that also generalizes to squares and hexagons and right triangles and rhombi and whatever else you want. And these are topics like both the ideas of coming up with different tilings and the ideas around these different sizes of twists and the continuum that you can have, and the symmetry points of like, okay, if I have 3-fold symmetry here and here, then I can draw lines and get where that center position has to be, and therefore what size this twist has to be. Those are all ideas that I talk about in advanced twist techniques. So here, again, we're putting in the new triangle twist with that flagstone spacing. We've got the valley fold sitting right in line with the folded mountain, the mountain fold 1 space further. And as we set up this closed triangle twist, which by the way is our other position of 3-fold rotational symmetry, we're also setting up a compound wrap to take care of the interaction between this pleat and this triangle twist. And squash. So one of the, like, I'm going to say the only way I was able to come up with patterns like this, and now we're going to flip the paper over and do our next trapezoid with our new pleat folding over this already stack of 2 pleats, and the double depth pleat going out towards the top. So the way I was able to come up with these new ideas for patterns, like using positions of 3-fold rotational symmetry instead of a center with 6-fold rotational symmetry, getting into these clusters of 4 triangles and like fitting all of this together in one pattern, is because I started teaching these patterns in online courses, and that helped me unlock, oh hey, there's different ways to apply symmetry to the same tiling. There's many more ways to arrange the shapes, the tilings, than I thought there were before. These are things that I developed through teaching advanced twisting techniques, tessellations by tiles, basic twist boot camp, all of these courses. And so in the tutorial, I'll try to actually tell you when I'm doing steps and why, instead of just babbling about the theory. So here again, we're going to have our first triangle wrap, the valley fold down through here. That is going to cut across this bottommost pleat that we would need to really open up and then let it sink down in and wrap around. While actually keeping everything on grid lines, which I think I have achieved there. And then we're taking this pleat and sending a new fold up under the corner here, and that can wrap. By the way, you could choose not to wrap that and turn this into a triple depth pleat. There's always options when it comes to pleat management. And you may want to double check on the back side, like, is this, is it actually on grid lines? And get that a little bit smoothed out, because these triangle wraps do respond better to pressure from the other side of the paper. And squash the trapezoid. So these ideas for this pattern are coming from looking at the theoretical side of tessellations. And again, I'm going to lift this flap up and over. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and lift this flap as well, because the way that we're working around will reach this twist first, or this pleat first. And then flipping over, I have two triangle wraps to squash. They're both sticking under other pleats, but they're sticking under double depth pleats, so it's not so bad. And then I need to repeat that same series of steps again. So this time I won't talk through it quite as much, because we've seen me talking through it twice. I have the triple open triangle twist, followed immediately by a closed triangle twist, which I'll set up as a three-way intersection for now. So if I did not have all of that theoretical knowledge of the tilings and the symmetries and the different sizes of twists, there's no way I could have come up with this pattern, tripartite. And that's one of the areas where there's so much room for exploration in coming up with new tilings, in coming up with different ways of applying symmetry to said tilings, that there's really limitless design styles for origami tessellations. I'll take a pause from the theory to talk about this area. We have an extra pleat in here because we have this triangle twist already. And all that means is I'm going to do compound wraps both above and below this new triangle twist. And so we have the compound wrap on the triangle twist we just put in. We also have a compound wrap just off of this triangle twist that we're putting in. And flipping the paper, I now have two compound wraps that are going to turn into trapezoid twists. I may as well do this one first, since it's not going to interfere with anything. Actually, scratch that. It is going to interfere with stuff, but it's not going to be a problem. Okay. So we're going to have this trapezoid twist. The corner is under this flap. And what we're going to do is just let that flap disassociate from the corner. And then we can squash our twist anyways. So that's a neat little flagstone trick. You can just disassociate the flap from the corner if it's a acute corner, if it's a pointy corner like this one. If it's an obtuse corner, then we have different tricks like I showed in the video with the hybrid hexagon twists and flagstone arrangements. And then we'll open that up, and what we'll have to do is pop this corner of the trapezoid up because it had been diving down into a bunch of valley folds. And once we do that, we can put in our usual wrap at that point. We don't need the triangle wrap over here because we already have that triangle twist. And then we have our double depth pleat coming out this way, and this time it's laying out over the edge of the triple open triangle hole. And then I can flip over to squash this remaining triangle twist. So like I was saying, there are infinitely many even ways to structure your shapes. So I think that means that there are infinitely many different styles that you could fold origami tessellations in, and therefore everyone can design in their own style. You do not have to invent whole new math to start designing your own tessellations, which means that I can teach you the math, and then you can go and create your own design style. And that's the point of advanced twist techniques. So next up, and I'm going to bring back the tiling real quick to demonstrate. So we just did this layer that completes these groups of trapezoids out to here. And the next layer is going to add more double depth triangles and complete the clusters of 4 triangles, both the ones that we started with 3 of the twists already in place and the ones that we started with just 1 twist in place. So these loops are adding, like I mentioned at the beginning, this triangle with 3 trapezoids is kind of a pseudo hexagon in the pattern. And so we're functionally adding in these pseudo hexagons and all of the triangles that go around them. So if I'm folding this pattern and I want to create a nice version with pleats on the edge, I'm going to fold out through these pseudo hexagons. And as you continue the pattern, you'll see there's these layers where you complete the flagstone motifs with those 3 trapezoids around a single small triangle. and then those alternate with layers where you're folding the 3 trapezoids around the double depth triangles. It's always going to be one or the other of these layers. So these moves that we're seeing in this small version of the pattern are the exact same moves that you would use to fold as many repeats as you want. So that's one of the great things about origami tessellations, that you can generalize from a small amount of the pattern exactly what you need to do moving forward. So I'm going to somewhat arbitrarily choose to start with this double depth pleat here, because I know exactly what goes on it. It's going to be a double depth triangle, same as it was in the center. So my valley fold is coming to the corner of this trapezoid twist. My mountain fold is going to be 2 spaces away because it is double depth. And so I'm going to set up the double depth triangle. I need to remember that all of my sides have double depth pleats, and squash. And I do have a layer bound up in here, and that is okay. We will release that in the next step. It's not bound up inside of the twist itself. So the next thing we're going to do is work our way down through resolving the pleat overlaps. I'm going to start with the trapezoid twist that's on this double depth pleat. And I'm going to start by, well, I'll mark first. I have to have a valley fold through there. And you'll notice that that valley fold and this mountain fold come together at a 120 degree angle. And that's a giveaway that when I put my pleat through there, what I'm going to need to do is a triangle wrap. The other giveaway that I need to do a triangle wrap there is that if I flip the paper over, that's the third corner of my triple open triangle. I'm going to need a closed triangle twist there. So that will need to be set up at some point, and we're just making that convenient with our setup of the trapezoid twist. Now the next thing I know, so I've got my triangle wrap in place. The next thing I know is that the mountain fold of the double depth pleat becomes the mountain fold of the middle single depth pleat. And so I have a mountain here from my triangle wrap. I'm adding a valley for the middle single depth pleat, and a mountain plus a valley becomes a flat space. So now I have a double depth pleat feeding into my triangle wrap because I added a second pleat on top, and then I need to find my third single depth pleat direction. Conveniently for us, that mountain is going straight to the corner of the paper, so if you can't find it from seeing the closed trapezoid, that's where to go. And the other thing that I'm noticing going on is the paper is really fighting me. So I'm going to flip over to the back and say, okay, why is this paper really fighting me? And it turns out it's fighting me because it's trying to self-intersect. It's trying to be like, okay, it's trying to say, okay, this layer's underneath, but no, this layer wants to be underneath, and they can't both be underneath each other. So what I'm seeing here is that I actually need to fold the triangle in order to have the trapezoid fold flat. So what I'm going to do is back off with the trapezoid a little bit and see if I can find a flat folding solution in here. That can help me set up the triangle before I set up the trapezoid. So I just fiddled with the paper for a little bit, but what I found is, so I've got this double depth pleat coming off of the triangle. And what I did is I came one space out from the corner of the triangle along the mountain fold of that pleat and sent a valley down into the valley down below, which then creates a three-way intersection. And I also split my mountain into a three-way intersection up here, and then split it again into a three-way intersection over here, and again into a three-way intersection over here. So that is all taken care of. You may find a different solution for yourself. Another way to do it, let's see, if I go back to my previous state and flip over and attempt this from the triangle side, then it seems most straightforward to just set up the triangle twist and then do the trick I mentioned earlier of disassociate the pleat on top from the triangle twist below. And we can do that because it is a pointy corner that we're squashing under there. And that's going to be the easiest solution for getting that triangle twist in place. And then we can flip back over here and say, okay, now I can open that up and use all of this information to set up my open trapezoid twist. Here I have the continuation of the mountain fold from the double depth pleat coming out here. I've got my 2 points of the open hexagon puffy star. And by the way, I think I did say a warning at the beginning that this would not be easy. This is kind of why. It's everything piled up on top of each other. And there I have my new trapezoid twist. And now I have a new conflict of pleats with all of these things coming together over here. I am going to need a double depth triangle down here, but what's more important is that I'm going to need another trapezoid twist in there. So if I know I have the double depth triangle coming up, then I can go ahead and set it up as a three-way intersection. So I went 2 spaces from the corner of this trapezoid to find the center of that triangle. I found the 3 directions of mountain folds, and I'm laying that down flat. And then my trapezoid under here is going to need a triangle wrap under that trapezoid that I just put in, and that is going to cause a double depth pleat because the triangle wrap is adding to the existing single depth pleat. And then I'm going to have my 3rd direction of mountain fold lining up in the same way as the pleat from the previous trapezoid. So what I did there is I looked at my pleats and I said, okay, this is my double depth pleat. The continuation of the mountain is the middle single depth pleat. So the other two directions have to be these two, because that's heading that way. And I'm looking for these pointy bits of the puffy hexagon star, but we're only doing the trapezoid because we're cutting it in half. And then I can set up that trapezoid twist, and I may as well go ahead and squash my double depth triangle that I had set up on this side before I flip over to squash that triangle that was left on the other side. Okay, so that's one kind of edge that we have. The next kind of edge, and we'll go to this one, then this kind of edge is going to have more of the triple depth triangles in it because it's going to complete those clusters of 4 triangles that have corners around this triangle in the position of threefold rotational symmetry. So this triangle has one pleat going under the threefold closed triangle, one pleat tucked underneath the double depth pleat, and the third pleat is going to a triple open triangle twist. So we can go ahead and set that up. And here again, I'm going to have a pleat overlap, but on this size of grid, that overlap is not very much. Actually, wait, no. It is a double depth pleat, and so we are going to want to go ahead and take some precautions. So the important thing here is that that double depth pleat is wrapping around all the way to here. It's wrapping all the way under. It's getting involved in the triangle twist. That is no bueno. We need to fix it. And so we need to be able to recognize from this point, okay, the corner of this giant triangle is here, and therefore the corner of the next twist is also here, and the valley is going to go out that way. And so we can do essentially a compound wrap, but it's going to look weird because we're going to be going 2 spaces down before that pleat bounces off again. And that can lay down, and we can squash our triple open triangle twist. And then we can immediately squash, in this case, our partial closed triangle twist. But we do get that triangle. And then we have a pleat interaction going on over here. So we can come over and open that up. And we're going to have a trapezoid twist going on in here. So we have the pleat coming up from the triangle. We have the pleat from our double depth triangle twist. That mountain is going to continue as the mountain fold of the central of the 3 single depth pleats of the trapezoid. And we're right here at the edge, so we just barely get another pleat in. We do get the whole trapezoid on this grid, but it is right at the edge, so I'm going to fiddle it into place. Welcome, Erlu. Glad you could join us. And that is actually not going to create any new pleat overlaps because this pleat came from an existing source. This pleat is going out, well, it's actually going, it might hit this actually, but one way or the other, this pleat is going out in this direction, not hurting anything. We're going to continue around looking at that next direction of pleats, which is this way. This should be extremely similar to the first set that we did. Also, I want to point out here, now that the trapezoid twists are covering corners of the triple open triangle hole, we have that nice tidy hole that we saw at the very beginning. So like I just mentioned, there's probably going to be some overlap going on in here, resolved with a, well, the trapezoids are all going to triangle twists. So we'll see. Something's going on. Looking at this side, I would much rather work from the top here down instead of bottom up. And I can do that. I don't have to stick to a strict spiral around. So I will jump up here to the top, and maybe for the third direction we'll try something else. Like maybe this isn't the most effective way. But my gut is telling me, jump up to the top. Do not approach this triangle with it looming over things that you want to fold. And then, like we saw on the last repeat, it's going to be much easier for us to put in this trapezoid, aka it's going to be possible for us to put in this trapezoid only if we put in the closed triangle on the other side first. So I'll flip over and open her up to find that closed triangle twist. And what we saw last time is, and I do want to be careful in here that I'm not messing up things on the other side. You could tell I saw that coming. Now, when that triangle is firmly in place, we can keep the double depth pleat folded and get our closed triangle twist. We just need to remember to slip the overlying pleat off and then squash under it. That squashed not quite as perfectly as I would like, so I'm going in and poking at it. And now we can flip over and open this guy up. And it's a kind of delicate operation, but we do have a nice cue, which is only applicable for practice pieces. If you're using a rotated grid, this won't apply, but our final direction of single depth pleat is headed straight for the corner in this one. So that's convenient. So there we have a nice trapezoid twist. Now we want to do exactly like we did in the previous time that we saw this arrangement, these two trapezoids, it would be, or triangles rather, where we're setting up the next double depth triangle as a three-way intersection. And then we have a triangle wrap in here, and our third single depth pleat for that trapezoid. These are forming an accordion. We have the double depth laying on top of the single depth pleats, and we can press to squash. And then I'll go ahead and, I see. This should be folded over this way. And when that is true, then this triangle can, in fact, squash. So yeah, for the next set of parallel pleats where we're in this situation, I'll try it going the other direction, but we'll see. It may or may not be possible. Flipping over, I'll squash the triangle that I had left as a three-way intersection. And then there's another closed triangle that I need to find in here. So I'm opening up the single depth pleat and then letting my double depth pleat run through again as I'm setting up the closed triangle twist, which is causing some interesting overlaps down here, which makes me think maybe I do want to go the other direction next time. And squashing that triangle under the flap of the double depth pleat. I'll flip over and it's time to add in. So when I folded that, it did fold through a previous twist, which is actually perfectly fine in this pattern because except for the triple open triangle, all of the other twists, once they're squashed, have the same orientations of grid lines on the inside as the grid outside. So then I have this most of a trapezoid twist, but I'm missing a little corner here. And one of my cues, besides not seeing any pleat overlaps, that I'm done with an edge in this ring around the center is that the giant triangles have all three of their trapezoids. So down here it has all three. This one just has two because we're waiting to come the rest of the way around for the third. So coming on up here, let's try going this way and see what happens. I've got two trapezoids around this triangle. I need a third. And this will be a situation where we do in fact get the entire trapezoid. If I had more grid, I would definitely do this as a single depth pleat. Here, I just have a flap that would be folding back with the valley because I'm on a 32 fold grid. So I can just let that flap tuck under, less stress on the paper. And I get the whole trapezoid for this one. Now that did cause a pleat overlap, and we're going to flip over to resolve it. That resolution is going to come from two triangle twists. It's going to be our triple open triangle, just like we did over here, and a closed triangle. So I'll open up the pleat overlap, set up the triple open triangle, and the closed triangle is going to be at this point. Conveniently, it can just lay down. And again, we're going to let that float up over when we squash the triple open triangle twist, because it's such a narrow angle between the valley fold underneath and this mountain fold at the edge of the triangle. We really don't want extra layers gunking that up. And so once the massive triangle is in place, I can go ahead and squash, in this case, the partial closed triangle twist. One of the features of this ring around the center is that you will not have any triangle twists that are not in a complete cluster or a complete isolated triangle. But you do not get full groups of trapezoids. You're going to see either solo trapezoids or pairs of trapezoids, but never groups of 3 around the very edge if you stop on this kind of ring around the center. So next up, we said we were going to try going this way. I'll start from this side, because on this very first pleat, I need a closed triangle twist. I'll take a sip of water too. And when I'm setting up this closed triangle twist, I'm noticing that the double depth pleat really wants to get involved and get up in there. So I'm going to see if I can do some kind of wrap. Let's see. And I'm not really noticing much wrap potential. So I'm going to run the single depth pleat through first, and then run the double depth pleat through second. I'm just reordering that overlap. And I don't need to be very particular about making that single depth pleat go all the way out. I just need it stable enough that the double depth pleat can go through, and then squash. Then flipping over here, if I want to deal with this overlap, then I need to set up the double depth triangle as a 3-way intersection, and that's going to take it out of the way. Yes, no, maybe. Kind of. Okay. So if I have this double depth triangle, I still have this kind of mess of stuff going on down here, because I want to respect this double depth pleat in order to get this trapezoid twist. So if I were to lay that flat, it would be on top of the trapezoid, but I can lift that flap out of the way because this line on the inside of the trapezoid is on the same grid line, on the same orientation as this grid line outside. So I can lift that away, set up, and squash my, in this case, partial trapezoid twist, and then go and squash my closed triangle twist. This is actually working out very well. Better than I expected. So then I need a new trapezoid twist. And as this trapezoid gets set up, it's going to trigger a triangle wrap in here. Okay, this one's messy. And I can't keep the double depth pleat folded while I set up the triangle wrap, so I need to reorder the overlap so that the pleat from the triangle wrap is going through first. And I may as well put through at the same time the pleat from this trapezoid. So that's one way to do it. I'm not super happy with how that's going to work later. Another way that I'm seeing is I have my double depth pleat here, and I just fold it back, because I mean I can fold back through the trapezoid and that's not a problem, and then I can have it folded and out of the way while these two single depth pleats pass through it. I like that a lot better. You can tell I'm figuring this out as I go because I have not folded this pattern since 2023. And then we can press to squash the trapezoid. And then flip over and we're free to squash the triangle. I noticed that I had a bit of crumpling where my double depth pleat was folded through. Oh, other thing that's happening with folding the double depth pleat back is it's folding this triangle in half, which is also fine. It's not adding any new folds. It's just a place where there's extra thickness. And with that triangle in place, now I can flip back and open up some of this mess to set up the three-way intersection of mountain folds for my double depth triangle, which I'll leave in a setup position until I get this trapezoid in place. What's going on with this trapezoid is we're going to need an extra triangle wrap with the previous trapezoid. So that's dropping down and wrapping around. This is the double depth pleat, so that's the middle single depth direction. We're going to add on the third single depth direction, and notice that changes the wrap to be double depth. And so if we were to lay down this triangle straight on top, you could just kind of lift it a little bit while you squash, or you could think of, okay, we're going to flip that back over. And then while we're on this side, we may as well squash the double depth triangle. And you can see how the sequence from this double depth triangle to this one would be the same if we had more grid and we're doing more repeats. It would be the same exact sequence from here to here as it would be from here to the next one. So that is how these patterns generalize. Now I am going to flip back over to squash the triangle that we set up. That's the triangle, the closed triangle in the position of threefold rotational symmetry. You can see these symmetry positions demarcated very clearly by the triple open triangles and the gaps between them, and then there's the intersections of the corners of those spaces. all three of those are the positions of rotational symmetry in the pattern. So from here, we're going to move to the final set of parallel pleats. We've got a set of pleats going out this way. And let's take a look at the other side to see what to do next. We just folded this twist. Let's continue with the next trapezoid. This one is going to create a pleat overlap in here. We will get the whole twist. And then we're going to follow the overlap. Flipping over, we have our closed triangle in here that does not have a triple open triangle next to it. So that is what we will put in. Triple open triangle twist, and the second part of the overlap will be a closed triangle twist right next to it. We'll let that float up so our corner is nice and precise. Not that anyone will ever see whether that corner is precise from the front side, because not only do you not see the corners of these triple open triangles from the front, you do not see the edges of their triangle holes either. But that said, like this particular corner, with it being so close to the edge, you do see more of that edge bit. But not really enough to tell whether the corner is super precise or not. And then from here, we have a new triangle twist going on in this area. It's feeding into a double depth twist, or double depth pleat, which means I can fold through this whole area, which is folding through one of our trapezoid twists on the other side, which is fine, as we've mentioned. And then flipping over, we can open all of that to put in a new trapezoid twist. And yeah, that is this ring around the center. So you'll notice that we still have some pokey bits in the corners, and I'm just going to leave them as pokey bits for this practice piece, because doing more, like I just don't have access to my full set of parallel pleats to be able to really generalize from any additional twists that I might be able to put in here. I will say that you can complete the cluster of trapezoid twists in here in the same way that we put in the third trapezoid for the central clusters. And if you want to just put in that trapezoid, that's not going to cause any further problems. So that trapezoid and the two triangle twists that support it, I'd say that's probably the best way to finish this extent of the pattern. And then again, we want to lift that corner of the double depth trapezoid triangle, and then flip over to squash both of those triangle twists. And actually, I will show that on another corner at slower speed. So I'm looking around for the pair of trapezoids that needs a third, and rotating so I can see exactly what's going on. The pleats are on my right hand side. I'm going for a valley fold from that central triangle hole out to, well, along the grid line. And I'm going to pop that down, put in a triangle wrap, and then the valley of my double depth pleat is going to come right to that three-way intersection of mountains for the triangle wrap. I'm also going to have a triangle wrap under the corner of the other trapezoid. And like I said, my double depth pleat is coming across there. And so this actually is a way that you could get to see more of the clusters. And again, I want to lift that flap so it doesn't get caught up when I flip the pleat to squash the triangle. And squash the other triangle. And we have just one more corner to do that in, so I'll do it really quick. And yeah, if you would like to learn more about how to use symmetry points to design new patterns, if you'd like to learn more about how to create new arrangements of shapes for creating origami tessellations, if you'd like to learn about how to use pleat shifts to change what twists are in a pattern, that is exactly what I'll be talking about in my Advanced Twist Techniques lectures coming up starting June 25th. So they're going to be Wednesdays at noon, June 25th, July 2nd, and July 9th. And you can register to view those lectures like you're viewing this YouTube video for free. There's a link in the description, and you can additionally pay, right now it's $40 until I've completed the set of lectures, to pay for the recordings and all of the crease patterns that go along with those recordings, and the previous lectures for Advanced Twist Techniques that I've done, and all of that is available at the link in the description. I'm seeing some of you in the chat already have access. If you have joined me for Advanced Twist Techniques in previous years, you already have access to this year's lectures and recordings and crease patterns, etc. And if you are one of the select few people who have opted for the all access option, which gives you access to all of my courses and lectures and recordings and crease patterns, etc., then you also already have access to these lectures and will have access to the recordings when they come out, etc. So this has been Tripartite. It's a very cool pattern. It uses flagstone motifs with trapezoid twists, which I'm just going to go ahead and spill the beans here, is something that will also show up in Advent of Test this year. So it's a good way to practice for that, because in Advent of Test, they're going to be showing up in ISO area patterns on both sides of the paper. So this will be a nice, fun, challenging year for Advent of Test as well. There's lots going on here at Gathering Folds. And the other thing that you can do to stay up to date with everything is join my newsletter. You can, like, if you sign up for viewing the Advanced Twist Techniques lectures, that gets you on my newsletter. If you sign up for Advent of Tests or Tessellation Foundations or any of these other options, that gets you on my newsletter. Also, I'll mention, like, the paper that I'm using probably played a large part in how smoothly this went. Like, I've developed a lot of skills, but I also use paper that's very well suited for folding origami tessellations. And so this is Skytone paper, and it's available at gatheringfolds.com. And again, if you check out and you check the box that says you want to receive communications, that gets you on my newsletter too. So happy folding, everyone. And one of the benefits of the newsletter is you will get a reminder in the morning before each of my live streams. So happy folding.